It's Wednesday, April the 21st, and welcome to the reading of the Record Courier. We'll begin our reading today with the readings of the area deaths. Alma J. Brokaw, 81, of Palmyra, Ohio, passed away on April 15th. Per Alma's wishes, cremation has been honored, and a celebration of her life will be held at a later date. Bruce Leroy Rennick, 87 years of age, of Hiram, Ohio, departed this life on Saturday, April 17th. No calling hours. A private family burial will be held. Rose Zumansky, 93, of Streetsboro, passed away on Monday, April 19th, at the Heritage of Hudson Nursing Home. Calling hours will be Thursday, April 22nd, from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Shorts, Spicer, Crislip Funeral Homes, Streetsboro Chapel. Mass of Christian burial will be 10:30 a.m. Friday, April 23rd, at St. Joan of Arc Church in Streetsboro. And that concludes the reading of the area deaths listed in the online edition. So we will continue with our first article. Superintendent Search Narrows by Diane Smith. The Ravenna Board of Education will interview 2 finalists for superintendent this week and expects to announce their choice on Monday. Dr. Laura Herbert, principal of Twinsburg High School, and Jude Meyer, superintendent of Gallia County Local Schools, will be interviewed this week. The board will hire one of them during its next meeting next week. The board, along with its consulting firm, Finding Leaders, is looking for a successor to Dennis Hunkala, who is retiring at the end of the school year after 10 years on the job. We have identified 2 outstanding candidates to lead our community's schools, and we look forward to more discussion in the week to come, said Roger Bolts, president of the Ravenna Board of Education. We are excited to introduce these 2 talented educators to members of our community, staff members, and some students as they continue the interview process. Craig McKendry, treasurer of the district, said a selected community staff and students will ask questions of both finalists this week. The board will then have final interviews with both candidates and will have an executive session to make a recommendation. The decision will be announced at the regular board meeting on April 26th. Herbert is responsible for the education of 1,300 students at Twinsburg High School in Summit County, where she was hired in 2018 after working at Chesterfield Public High School in Virginia. She received an undergraduate degree from Ohio State University, a master's degree in curriculum and instruction, and a doctorate in educational leadership and policy from Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University. She has been in administration roles for a variety of school districts. Myers has been the superintendent of Gallia Schools in Southern Ohio for 7 years. Previously, he served as superintendent for 4 years at Old Fort Local Schools in Seneca County, Ohio, and also served as a building administrator, classroom teacher, and boys basketball coach. Hunkala, superintendent of the district for the past 10 years, was hired in 2011 from Buckeye Local Schools. Hunkala has worked in education for 33 years. Before becoming a superintendent and high school administrator, he served as a high school teacher. Before narrowing the list to 2, the board said it was interviewing 7 candidates for the position. The other candidates were Lee Smith, principal of West Main Elementary School in Ravenna, Vincent Super, principal of Streetsboro Middle School, Craig Hockenberry, former superintendent and current consultant of the Three Rivers Local School District in Cleves, Ohio, Christine Michael, assistant superintendent of Northridge Local Schools in Johnstown, and Dr. Eugene Thomas, superintendent of Lowellville Local School District in Mahoning County. Streetsboro names roads that will be resurfaced this year by Caitlin McGarvey, as Streetsboro sends out bid requests for its 2021 road resurfacing program. Construction on Route 14 is set to kick off in early May. Funding from the Ohio Public Works Commission will go towards the repair and resurfacing of portions of Pike Parkway, Aurora Hudson Road, and Wellman Road. Of the more than $1,083,000 cost for work on those 3 roads, the city of Streetsboro is responsible for about $715,000, or 66% of the total. Roughly $67,000 has been allocated for work on catch basins and the paving of the parking lot at Thomas Heritage Park. Though funding is secured for those projects, Streetsboro Mayor Glenn Broska approached City Council about allocating more to the 2021 road resurfacing program's base bid. Federal stimulus money planned to be distributed by the state to municipalities presented the opportunity for more work to be done, he said. Members of City Council seem to be in favor of adding an additional $600,000 to the existing base bid budget of approximately $400,000. Usually, the budget is much higher, Broska said. However, considerable funding was allocated to the widening of Route 14, which will begin in early May. The increased budget would allow for the following roads to be resurfaced in 2021. Alden Drive from Gloucester Road to North Del Monte Boulevard. Fronic Road from Fair Acres Avenue to South Del Monte Boulevard. Gloucester Road from Green Tree Parkway to the north end. Market Square Drive from Route 303 to Route 14. Midds Court from South End to the north end. Mitchell Drive from Dorothy Drive to Mount Vernon Drive. Muriel Drive from Dorothy Drive to Mount Vernon Drive. Opal Court from the west end to the east end. Sydney Drive from Dorothy Drive to Mount Vernon Drive. Sparrow Run from North Del Monte Boulevard to the east end. Stratford Court from the south end to Gloucester Road. Walsh Drive from Jennifer Lane to Dan's Way. Winesec Road to Anna Lane Drive to Route 303. Fixing those roads would get the city through the threes on its road condition report. Annually, Streetsboro road conditions are ranked by severity from 1 to 10, with 1 being the worst. We will have some of, if not, the best roads in any municipality in the county, Broska said. I'm very happy to put this forward, and I hope that Council believes this is another very worthy project. I believe we will be able to find the funding without too much issue. Broska said he spoke with U.S. Representative Tim Ryan about the matter. When I talked to Congressman Ryan on the phone about the stimulus money, the $3.23 million that is supposed to be allocated, I asked him when that money is supposed to be sent down, Broska said. He indicated the feds had 30 days to get it to the state, and the state had 30 days to get it to the communities. The state is waiting for further guidance on what stimulus money could be used for, including roads. However, Broska explained there are alternate funding options for road programs if that money is not awarded or cannot be used as hoped. In the worst-case scenario, he said later, the 2021 road resurfacing program could be paid for with money from the city's carryover fund. In the second-best scenario, stimulus money from the state would substitute money in the general fund. That freed-up money would then be moved to the capital fund to pay for the roads. In the best-case scenario, the state would allow stimulus funding to be used directly on roads one way or another. All of the roads listed will be addressed, he said. In previous years, Broska told Council it has been a trend for road program bids to come in lower than estimated. Should that be the case for this upcoming one, sections of Dolores Drive, Poston Road, and Topaz Terrace may be added to the roster. These alternate streets are estimated to add an additional $179,000 to the total cost. No federal stimulus money had been awarded as of Monday. Streetsboro Finance Director Jenny Esseray said the stimulus was thought to be around $3.23 million, but she said that is preliminary figures and nothing has been finalized nor confirmed. The city has 60 days before it must make a decision on what to do with the road program. The mayor said he was confident money will be allocated before then and that there will be a clear understanding of what it can and cannot be used for. He also reminded Council that the city has the right to reject any and all bids that are received. We're not putting the cart before the horse here, Broska said. We have a solid plan. We have multiple avenues in which we can pay for this. Broska told the Record Courier he was notified via email that construction on Route 14 widening project is expected to begin the week of May the 5th. More details will be laid out as a pre-construction meeting taking place later in April. Construction should take a little over a year to complete. The project will widen Route 14 between Portage Point Drive by the former Kmart to Diagonal Road. It will add a third lane, curbs, and gutters. Sidewalks also will be added to the north side of the road for the entire length of the project. And now, a debut to remember. by Jonah Rosenblum. Mason Bartholomew's first variety start was certainly memorable for the preposterous weather, for the equally preposterous pitching. Facing a Mogadore team that was averaging more than 10 runs per game prior to this week's 3-game series with Rootstown, the Rovers Jr. allowed 2 hits over 7 scoreless innings, striking out 10 and doling out a single free pass. What Mason Bartholomew did on the mound Thursday was absolutely brilliant, Rootstown coach Keith Weish said. We're talking about a junior that's basically in his sophomore season of high school baseball and his first ever start. Through cold, through rain, through what looked an awful lot like sleet, Bartholomew pressed on, striking out numerous hitters with knee-buckling curves. Every inning seemed to bring worse weather for a while. Bartholomew never so much as flinched. When I go on the mound, I don't think of anything else. I'll be honest, Bartholomew said. I stick to what's going to happen, how I'm going to do it, and make sure everything goes the way it's supposed to go. There was no warm-up start leading into Thursday's afternoon for Bartholomew. No chance to get his first start in against a non-league foe. Maybe a team with a relatively weak lineup. Nope. Bartholomew's first start came against the Wildcats, with the Rovers' win streak of 25 regular season games and 21 league games at stake. That kid was put into a very, very difficult situation, Weish said, due to the weather and the conditions, to try to finish off a 3-game sweep against a team that came into this week averaging 10.5 runs a game. I mean, that is asking a lot. Whatever the conditions, seemingly nothing could shake Bartholomew, who mixed an 80s fastball with a deadly 12-6 curve throughout the afternoon. Bartholomew looked vulnerable just once in the game's opening moments as he fell behind leadoff hitter Ty Johnson 3-0 and 2-hitter Mason McBriar 3-1. He bounced back for a 1-2-3 top of the first. I did have trouble at the beginning getting to the curveball, but the main part for me was the mound, Bartholomew said. My stride foot, when I stepped out, the dirt was so not compact that I would just slide out, so I had no accuracy or control of where the ball was going. But then once it started compacting, and then of course the rain came, it did it even more. I was able to get balanced and actually be able to throw an accurate pitch and get my curveball working. 3 times Thursday, Bartholomew allowed a base runner on a single, a double, and a walk. All 3 times he responded with a strikeout. The thing that makes Mason Bartholomew special is that he is extremely calm, focused, and level-headed, Weish said. He showed that calmness Thursday of a kid that many would have thought has had 15 or 20 varsity starts. If not for a pandemic, Bartholomew likely would have made several starts as a sophomore after spending most of his freshman year on the junior varsity. Instead, he never got the chance to rack up valuable varsity experience in 2020. I was going to be playing varsity, Bartholomew said. I was going to be starting. Sadly, we didn't get to have that happen, but a good thing coming into this year for me was that I played travel ball over the summer last year, so I was still used to throwing. Following summer ball, we went off to Dara's All-Star Academy, attending velocity classes 3 times a week from November through just prior to baseball season, Bartholomew said, that each class was an hour and a half, with an hour of throwing followed by a half-hour workout. He said he would make roughly 250 throws a week. Asked about his superb 12-6 curveball, Bartholomew credited Dara's. I was always taught you make a C with your hands, Bartholomew said. The top 2 fingers on the top of the ball and your thumb underneath. You'll make it like a C, and you want to just throw it forward. Snap your wrist forward. That's how I've always been taught. Needless to say, velocity class is also a major reason for Bartholomew's heaters surging into the 80s. His preternatural calm on the mound has a similarly simple explanation. My parents have always taught me mental is the way to go for baseball, Bartholomew said. I've pitched in rain before. Snow, not really much, just because we really don't see it much in baseball. But for me, I just take it out of the picture. Our next article, court budget cut by $200,000. If the reductions remain in place, the office will need to lay off 6 of 14 employees. By Phil Kieran. Stowe City Council is reconsidering a recent $200,000 cut to the municipal court's budget that critics say could delay everything from protective orders for domestic violence victims to background checks for firearm purchases. Council on March 31st approved cutting the Stowe's municipal clerk of court's budget from $1.092 million to $891,878 to address a $1.2 million budget deficit that was projected for the court in 2021 by Judge Kim Hover. The Stowe Municipal Court serves 16 communities in northern Summit County, including Boston Heights, Boston Township, Cuyahoga Falls, Hudson, Macedonia, Monroe Falls, Northfield, Northfield Center Township, Peninsula, Reminderville, Sagamore Hills, Silver Lake, Stowe, Talmadge, Twinsburg, and Twinsburg Township. Council member Jeremy McIntyre, at large, who proposed the reduction, said caseloads are down 30% and traffic citations are also down. Our caseloads are down by 30%. Our traffic citation ticket writing is down. He added, "We're facing a deficit in the court. The workload's down. The clerk has indicated that this was an anomaly that they're seeing, that there's going to be an uptick in cases, but provided no information or statistics that indicated we would see an uptick," he said. McIntyre said he felt it was prudent for council to make the cut to avoid having to run a deficit and having to seek out fines and costs from other communities. At the April 8th council meeting, Stowe Municipal Court Clerk of Courts Amber Zibrotoski, as well as several area mayors, past clerks of court, current clerk of court employees, and residents submitted letters requesting that the funding be restored. Stowe Mayor John Probonic also formally requested that legislators restore the funding. Council member Christina Shaw, at large, who cast the only dissenting vote on the budget cut, asked the law department to prepare legislation to amend the 2021 budget to restore the clerk's office funding. She requested that the proposal appear on the council's agenda on April 22nd. Zibrotoski said if the funds are not restored to her office, she will have to immediately lay off 6 of her 14 employees or face a total office shutdown by October 1st. Losing 6 employees would significantly impact the workflow in the clerk's office, she said. With half of my staff defunded and gone, we simply will not be able to process critical court documents in a timely manner, Zibrotoski wrote in a letter to council. That means temporary protection orders will be backlogged, putting domestic violence victims at risk. It means police officers will spend more time waiting in line for warrants and less time on the roads protecting our citizens. It means FBI background checks for firearm purchases will slow to a crawl. Zibrotoski said council has a legal duty to adequately fund the clerk's office. Your failure to do so in a timely manner violates Ohio law and puts the safety of the entire court district at risk, she said. Zibrotoski told the Beacon Journal she will be forced to consider legal action if council does not restore the funding. After seeing a large drop in the number of cases in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the number of cases being handled by the court are starting to rise, Zibrotoski said. As of March 31st, our monthly case court shows that workloads are rapidly increasing, with 251 more cases filed this month than in March of 2020, Zibrotoski wrote in a letter to council April 8th. McIntyre says he favors reevaluating the court's situation later in the year once more data is available on the number of cases. Council's vote to reduce the clerk of court's budget by $200,000 was 5-1-1, with Shaw voting no, and council member Steve Haler from Ward 3 abstaining because he said he owned stock in a bank that is a depository institution for the court. Council voted 6-1 to pass the city's overall 2021 budget, with Shaw dissenting, but Haler voting yes after Law Director Jamie Six said it was acceptable for him to vote. Special funds won't cover expenses. The Stowe Municipal Court typically has an operating deficit each year, but has used money from its Special Projects Fund, Probation Fund, Home Incarceration Fund, and other programs to cover the gap between revenues and expenditures, according to Hoover. In 2020, the deficit was $880,000, which was covered by money from those funds, Hoover said. The municipal court moved from Cuyahoga Falls to Stowe in 2009. Since then, Stowe Finance Director Jim Costello said the city and the court have had a very cooperative arrangement concerning financing the court building, construction, and operations. The source of money for the special funds are fees and charges imposed on defendants, according to Costello, who said court leaders have discretion on how much they use the funds to cover the deficit. Since 2011, the other communities in the court district have not had to contribute to any deficits, Costello said. It is our intent to continue this practice. Hoover said he anticipated that the court's additional funding sources could cover about $700,000 of the anticipated $1.2 million deficit, which means the courts needed to reduce its expenses by about $500,000. He suggested that the judges and magistrate need to cut about $300,000 and the clerk's office needed to cut about $200,000. If we do not make these reductions so that we cannot break even, the city of Stowe will eventually eat the cost of operation, Hoover said. In the 2021 budget, the judges and magistrates cut their expenditures by about $207,000, or 12.3%, from $1.685 million in 2020 to $1.478 million in 2021. Hoover said the court has reduced its staff by 2.5 positions as of January 1 and is planning to reduce 1.5 more positions this year. Those 4 positions represent 25 to 30% of the court's workforce, excluding the clerk's office. Hoover said he will wait until he has caseload data from April through June before making a decision on whether he will cut the judges' or magistrates' budgets by nearly $100,000 more. The clerk of court's office had proposed reducing its expenditures this year by a little more than $13,000, from $1.241 million in 2020 to $1.227 million in 2021. Zbiertoski noted the budget she requested was 7% lower than the clerk's office expenditures in 2018, and that the office's staffing is at its lowest point in history. Court facing a larger than normal deficit. Case numbers for 2015 to 2019 were steady before taking a large drop in 2020 during the pandemic. The number of cases heard by the court from 2015 to 2019 averaged 19,947 per year, compared to 14,916 in 2020. Due to COVID-19, Hoover said it's hard to predict what the court's caseload will be in 2021, but said his $1.2 million deficit projection is based on the fact that I'm predicting less cases rather than the same or more. The number of civil cases is expected to be higher, according to Hoover. Zbiertoski said the overall number of cases handled by the court in 2020 was 28% lower than it was in 2019. From 2019 to 20, the amount of assessed fines and costs were 30% lower, and revenues for the court brought in was 15% lower. Part of the reason for the deficit is that it can take multiple years to fully collect fines on criminal cases, Zbiertoski said. She said the lower number of traffic cases was a big part of the devastating hit of 2020, because those cases generate revenue and carry a lower amount of labor expense for the court and the clerk's office. The number of traffic cases that we've seen in the past couple of weeks has really gone up, she said. I don't know if it will go all the way back up to normal. That'll probably take time, but I'm hopeful that they will go up. Zbiertoski said she is hoping that by late July, the number of cases are plus or minus 100 cases compared with the number of cases in July of 2018 and 19. Since collecting fines on criminal cases can last a long period of time, she expects revenue collection will lag for the rest of 2021 and possibly into early 2022. Hoover said he believed police departments were avoiding unnecessary face-to-face contact with the public for minor offenses and are not writing as many tickets as they normally would. If it does not come into the pipe on one end, we can't turn it into money on the other end, Hoover said. However, Stowe Police Chief Jeff Film said his department went back to full enforcement back in November or December. We've been hitting it very hard, especially since the Route 8 project just opened back up. Elected officials share concerns. A total of 19 letters, all in opposition to funding cut, were read into the record by Villers on April 8th. Elected officials who sent in letters were Caggo Falls Mayor Don Walters, Silver Lake Mayor Bernie Hovey, Talmadge Mayor David Klein, Macedonia Mayor Nick Molnar, Monroe Falls City Council Member Mike Barnes, and Summit County Clerk of Courts Sandra Kurt. Each wrote letters to Stowe City Council opposing the cuts to the municipal court clerk's office. Others submitting letters in opposition of the cuts include former Stowe Mayor Sarah Klein, now the superintendent of Caggo Falls Parks and Recreation Department, and 3 former clerk of courts, Diana Colavecchio, Eric Zelti, and Lisa Zeno Carano. Noting he felt that reducing staffing would mean the courts must reduce its caseload, Walters offered to have his city's mayor court handle driving under suspension cases. The municipal court moved from Caggo Falls to Stowe in 2009. In that same year, Caggo Falls opened a mayor's court. Traffic caseloads are rising in Caggo Falls, and we have adequate staffing to hear these additional cases, Walters wrote. Not only would this alleviate your problem of a dangerous reduction in clerk staffing, but defendants will be substantially less in fees and fines. Hoover said Stowe Municipal Court loses many traffic cases to the Caggo Falls Mayor's Court. The loss of Caggo Falls, our largest city, to Mayor's Court continues to haunt us, Hoover said. He estimated that Caggo Falls Mayor's Court costs the Stowe Municipal Court between $350,000 and $500,000 per year, and added that the municipal court's building construction bill would have been paid off by now if the Mayor's Court did not exist. Well, friends, that concludes the reading of the Record Courier for Monday, April 20th. Thank you for having me into your home today. My name is Pam. Please be well until we are here together again. Be abundantly blessed today.